Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I will be mainly talking about the important change that we got as well as the nerf after release compared to the closed beta 3. And also some of the things that I forgot to mention in my previous two parts of the weakness break video. I highly recommend you to first watch my part 1 and part 2 of the weakness break video first, so that you can get a better understanding about the basic idea about breaking. And then when I talk about the stuff in here as the part 3 video, you will have an idea of what I'm talking about. Alright, so let us begin. Okay, so the first change we have is the toughness damage we're doing to the enemy toughness bar on the top here is no longer matter between your character level versus the enemy level, which means the level gap between your character and the enemy does not matter anymore right now in the official release version. So take a look at an example here. The enemy here is level 45. All three of them are level 45. And my character, I have a level 48 March 7, a level 20 Yang Qing, and a level 1 Herda. They are all ice element. So for the basic attack here, as you can see, I am doing only one-time toughness damage to the minion and to the boss. This boss, by the way, has 10 times toughness HP. And the minion on the side here, they both have 2 times toughness HP. So by doing this basic attack with my level 20 Yang Qing versus a level 45 enemy, which is a level 25 differences, my March 7 is doing exactly the same amount of toughness damage as my Yang Qing here by basic attack. And my Herta, who is only level 1, is also doing exactly the same toughness damage to all the enemies. So right now in the official version, level gap is completely not matter at all for breaking enemy toughness, which is a pretty good buff, because right now you don't really have to worry too much about your character level being within 10 level differences between the enemy in order to do the maximum amount of toughness damage. So it allows you to spend your stamina more on farming relics and gears instead of character level. So instead of trying to make your entire team to be level 80 as first priority, now you can actually have your team sit at level 60 or something, and then spend the rest of the stamina and try to farm as much gear as possible. The second change we have is about ice and quantum break. So in the CBT, when ice and quantum break happen, we also apply a 1-turn damage over time to the enemy, just like how every single other element as well, except imaginary. However, in the official version right now, as you can see here, physical, it dealing physical damage over time, physical dots at the end. But ice, it changed the wording to additional ice damage, as well as quantum is also additional damage. It's not damage over time anymore. So what this means? This means that for damage over time debuff, like sample for example, it is no longer going to help with quantum break as well as ice break damage, while it will still help with physical, wind, fire, and lightning. First, let us take a look of the quantum break. Now I'm going to break this enemy with the quantum element. And you can see the boss still have the entanglement debuff on, just like how we used to have in CBT. Now the difference is, by the time this boss is going to move the next turn and take the damage from entanglement, this damage will increase based on how many times we attack him during this amount of time. And this can stack up to 5 times. Now I'm going to attack the boss with basic attack here, and see now the entanglement is went up from 1 to 2. Now if we keep attacking the boss up to 5 times, so now it's at 4, and now watch the maximum damage we can do after 5 times here. is doing 508. Now let's compare the damage with just one stack of Quantum Break and exact same stats of 侵却. Okay, I break it and now you see it has one stack here. And I'm just going to not attack the enemy anymore by using all the utility stuff. Alright, let's see the damage. 101. So as you can see, it's exactly 5 times between one stack and 5 stack. So meaning each stack is literally doubling the damage by the time it explodes. However, this damage does not affect by damage over time debuff from sample, because this is not considered a damage over time. So you might be wondering, physical versus quantum, which element now do more damage? Because in the closed beta, physical element is the best element to do break damage as well as damage over time. But now the quantum element damage over time got buffed so much, it seems like it can compete with physical element. So why don't we do a test right now? So first we have a level 20 侵却, who is at 0% break effect, and also a level 20 Su Shang, who is also at 0% break effect. Now I'm going to test this on the same boss here, which is this boss at level 45, and he's weak against both physical and quantum. Now let's see the damage difference. I'm going to first break with quantum first. Okay, so that was 71 break damage. And then I'm going to attack him to stack up to 5 times of the entanglement debuff. Okay, he is at 4. So why not after my attack it will be 5. Now let's see how much damage is the 5 stack. $479. Okay. And now let's see how much I break with Su Shang. 0% break effect. 287 on break. Okay. 319 for the first dot. 287 for the second dot. So as you can see, physical is still being better overall damage compared to quantum. Next, we have Serval's ultimate. Now, Serval's ultimate has always been like this since CBT3, but I just forgot to include her and explain how her ultimate worked in my previous videos. So for her ultimate, she will extend any shock debuff for 2 turns. This shock is not only limited to only the shock applied from your skill, it's also the shock applied from breaking the enemy as the DOT afterward. So as you can see here, I'm going to use my basic attack on the boss to break it. Now apply the shock here. Now this shock is the lightning break shock and it's 2 turns. Now if I use my Serval ultimate here, now this got extended to 4 turns. So what does this mean? This means that Serval is able to break the enemy for the first time, apply the break damage over time, and then use ultimate to permanently extend that duration to basically infinite, as long as she can generate her ultimate back within 2 turns of the enemy boss movement, which is quite easy considering how Serval, her ultimate is only 100 energy requirement. And also, if you're using this light cone, or if you have Serval E2, it will also give her more energy per skill use. And if you are having a speed boot on Serval, she can move faster than the boss, then it's very possible that you are going to generate ultimate within 2 turns of the boss movement. And so you can achieve the goal of permanently extending this shock for the entire fight. Now what's even better is that after the boss got shocked by the first break, okay, and now you see I'm already having my ultimate back ready, and the boss still have 1 turn left of the shock. So I'm able to extend it even further back to 3. Now I'm able to break the boss the second time with a different element in my team. So in this case, I'm breaking with ice. But what you can do is also bring another unit like physical, depending on what the boss weak against, and then use those elements character to break the boss starting the second time and the third time, and the rest goes on. By doing so, you are able to apply multiple damage over time. And as you can see here, the boss is taking 2 instances of damage from both the dots. So normally, you will only want to have 1 unit in your entire team to build some of the break effect stats, and then make sure that unit break the enemy toughness every single time to do the maximum damage. However, with Serval in the team, you are actually able to have 2 units to build break effect stats. One is being Serval herself, and then another one being like a physical unit, or quantum units, or like wind units, or fire units. All depends on what the boss is weak against. And they have those units to build break effect as well, so that you can break the first time with Serval, apply the shock that caused by the break, which will do quite some good amount of damage every single turn when the boss moves. And then you use Serval ultimate to keep up the shock permanently extended, so that you don't have to break with Serval ever again for the rest of the fight. And then you use your second unit to break every single time going forward. Those dots combined together is going to give you a massive amount of damage every single time the boss moves in their turn. Next, we have Windbreak. Now, Windbreak has always been like this since CPT3, but I just forgot to include this into my previous video, so that's why I am talking about this right now. So basically, what it does after you break the enemy with Wind, you apply a 3 stack of Wind Shear damage over time for 2 turns. Now, the thing about this Wind Shear is that after it's applied to the boss, and this is the only stackable element so far compared to any other element, meaning that if you are able to reduce this boss toughness bar again to 0 before the Wind Shear damage over time is gone, you are able to stack this up from 3 stacks to a maximum of 5 stacks, and the duration will be refreshed. Okay, and now you can see I'm going to break the boss again with my Danheng, the same breaker, and now look at this Wind Shear. It got refreshed back to 2 turns, and also the stack went up from 3 stacks to 5 stacks. And now you can see the damage over time is going to take. It's going to increase based on how many stacks the enemy have. Now here's the math calculation for Wind Shear damage over time between 3 stacks and 5 stacks. As you can see, each stack do exactly the same damage, and basically just multiply each other on top of the number of the stacks. Okay, so after we discussed all the important changes about break, now let's talk about the nerf. So first nerf we got is the Thief of the Shooting Meteor relic set. Both the 2-piece and the 4-piece were originally 20% break effect each, and now it reduced to 16% each, meaning a total of 8% nerf. And also, the main stats, unfortunately I don't have one showing to show you for example here, but basically the main stats you can get from a 5-star relic of the rope part was originally 81% break effect at max, but now the maximum you can go is actually only 64.8%, which is about a 16% nerf for break effect on this 1-piece here. And then what's more is, originally in the closed beta we have the boot relic also available for break effect stats, but now they removed it completely, so meaning you are no longer able to get break effect as main stats anywhere in the relic set here except the rope by itself. So that is another 81% nerf. So now it's already over 100% nerf compared to the closed beta. And then what's more is for the substats. For break effect. So back then you are able to get more substats per roll, and now you basically got nerfed, I would say about like 20% nerf on a substat roll as well. So that is very, very hard nerf on the break effect stat. So what does that mean? To me personally, I think break effect is no longer a build that you can go hard with no matter how you're gonna build it. You can still build break effect, but you are not going to able to build as many break effect as in the closed beta. You will probably only get about half as the amount as in closed beta with this exact same build. So I think what the game designer is trying to do here is trying to tell you, hey, break effect was never meant to be a complete build. You should not only build your character with break effect and nothing else and try to beat the game. Break effect is good and all. It will help you a lot with your break damage and DOT, but you should also focus on other stuff that your character were designed to build. So for example, if you are running Su Shang, right? As I mentioned in my previous video, Su Shang is the best to build break effect. Now you are no longer able to build only break effect, and the game is basically telling you to, hey, you should still go with full DPS build with Su Shang, just like how you will build any other DPS character. So that means you will be using like the 4th set of physical set here on Su Shang, and then building a crit, an attack, and a physical damage here. However, at the very last piece, the rope here, you have the option to either go with attack percent or break effect. Now this option is pretty much your own decision of what you want to build, and it's very flexible. And the game is telling you break effect is not a bad option here in this slot, as it will greatly increase your character break damage, thus increasing your overall damage. So if you're only running as attack here, and you already got a lot of attack rolls from a substat earlier, then the attack main stat on the rope is not going to help you much in your overall damage. So that means by building break effect now, on top of building a full DPS build, will actually give you a greater boost to your overall damage compared to just building attack percent here. So I believe that is what the game designer is basically trying to tell us. Break effect is meant to be hyper build on top of whatever your character is supposed to build on. So in the end, you should be the one deciding whether or not to build break effect, as I'm only here to give you information to help with your decision. But even if you want to build break effect, you must consider only building one character for each team, because any more characters building break effect will be waste, as you will only be using one character to break enemy after all. However, if Serval is in your team, then that could be the exception, where Serval can be the one building break effect and also have another character building break effect because of Serval's ultimate extension. And any ice element character should never build break effect, because it doesn't help with freeze and their damage is very low compared to any other element. As for imaginary character, you can consider build break effect as well for the big action value delay in a niche team comp, such as with Serval E6. But normally, they don't really need to build break effect, because again, their damage is very low. So break effect should never be the main focus of your build. Instead, you should treat it as like a luxury stat for extra damage, and you should only consider break effect after you have properly built your character into the role that they were originally designed to do first. So should you be using the Thief of Shooting Meteor relic set? It really depends on if the character have a best in slot relic set already. If they don't, then this set would be a great choice for them, only if you are also planning to use the break effect main stat rope, because if you're not using the break effect main stat rope, there is absolutely no point to use the Thief of the Shooting Meteor set. And now let us take a look of the rope main stat. As you can see, break effect is competing with the base stats as well as the energy regeneration rate. So when it comes to determining whether or not to build break effect, you need to first ask yourself a few questions. First, what is the element of this character? Is their element doing a lot of break effect damage? Second, how easy is this character to reduce the toughness bar from the enemy by using their skill? Are they good at breaking the enemy weakness? And then you need to ask, what is this character's role? What were they designed to do as their job? After that, then you need to ask yourself, well, do they need the energy regeneration main stat to smoothen their ultimate rotation? Or do they need the extra base stat from the rope to do their job properly? So for example, a DPS unit will want to do as many damage as possible. That is their job, right? So does an attack rope give them more damage overall? Or is it a break effect rope give them more damage overall? The answer will be, for most DPS, as long as you are not ice or imaginary element, generally break effects main stats roll should give you more overall damage compared to attack main stat rope, as long as you are the one constantly breaking the enemy weakness. But in the case where you're going to bring your DPS to a boss fight that do not have the element weakness as your main DPS, then in that case, break effect rope is completely useless, and an attack rope will be much better for more general use overall. So unless you are trying to bring that DPS only to the boss fight that are weak against your own element, then break effect in that case would be better than attack rope. Otherwise, if you're planning to use your DPS on every single fight, no matter what the weakness is, then an attack rope is much better in this case. Now what about a shielder or a healer? Well, their job is to keep your team survive, and considering how the end game content right now, they hit so hard, it is not likely that your healer will have enough heals if they are not using a HP rope. And also, healer and shielder, they usually do not have that many attack moves in their skill kit to reduce the enemy toughness bar. So that's why they are really inefficient in trying to break the enemy toughness. So that's why healer and shielder, they usually do not want break effect, because now they fail the question of how easy they can reduce the enemy toughness from using their skill. And as for support that buff and debuff the enemy, that would be a case-by-case scenario depending on each specific character, because base stat usually does not matter for most of them, which means only the energy regeneration versus break effect. And depending on how their ultimate work, how useful their ultimate is, and how much energy they need in each of the ultimate, it is very hard to say a for sure correct answer of which one to build for support in general. And lastly, we have tank. Tank units, their job is to provoke the enemy, draw the aggros to make the enemy attack on them, and then they survive all the hits throughout the entire fight. So in this case, tank actually do not need the extra base stats from the rope to survive the fight, because as long as they do not get one shot by the enemy, you can always heal them back up. And usually their ultimate does not really matter. For example, look at Fire MC ultimate. They only do damage and reduce toughness, and pretty much nothing else. So that's why for tank, it is actually the best to use break effect rope so that they can do a lot more extra damage on top of doing their job properly by provoking the enemy as well as surviving. So yeah, in the end, everything I just said here is just information to help you with your decision making, whether or not to build break effect. In the end, you should be the one making this decision, and not me or anyone else tell you that you should always go with this build for this specific character. I'll be making a personal tier list about which character can use the break effect rope, but that will be on a separate video. So stay tuned for that next. Thank you so much all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.